Titi. Before we went on break, he was talking about how people in the South, he mentioned Wole Soyinka, how they characterize events in the North. So please, Dr. Bello, can you continue from that point? What
I was saying is that we need to get away from that kind of stereotype, that frame of mind, which is centered around the dogma of region, the dogma of ethnicity, and the dogma of religion, and try to bring tools, intellectual tools, which can help us to explain complex social and historical realities in a manner that will be comprehensible and which could be amenable to solutions. Now, let me just, just yesterday there was this attempt to rescue some Europeans, one Italian, one British, from Sokoto. And the press went on and said this was Boko Haram. And today, the Boko Haram denied that this was, they were involved in this, that they were not a party to that conflict. So now what do? I think we always rush to judgment. We don't investigate. We don't try to find out. We have boogies. We have some kind of scapegoats. We always want to explain things from a certain geopolitical position rather than from a certain scientific position. And this will not do anybody any good. It will not be good for the country. Now, this is just one instance. The other one is, now you are trying to deal with a complex, a variety of problems associated with security in Nigeria. How on earth would you not look at the conduct? Many people are saying the government has been lax. Okay, let me give you a lot of examples of this insecurity. Now, I've told you about Boko Haram. They said a lot of their people have been killed, extrajudicial killing. They want justice. What do you have to say about that? Let me ask you again. They have just reported the day before yesterday or so in places like Benue and so on. There is a big crisis, conflict between the team and the Fulani. Why? Because these were pastoralists and the agriculturalists, and this they have been trespassing over them. Is this not part also of maladministration? Is this not evidence that the government of Nigeria, this thing has been going on for over the last 10 years? Nobody has even attempted to find a solution to it. Let's go to Jos. The same crisis in Jos. People have been killed. Most of them orphaned, widowed, and nobody is paying attention to them. Nobody, even the judge, I think I was reading in the papers yesterday, was saying that the government was foot dragging about taking these people to court and doing justice to them. Now, if the government itself is the one that is foot dragging, you cannot explain. Now, you say Boko Haram. Every time people talk, they say Boko Haram. Is it Boko Haram that turned Christians to go and bomb churches? Or the Christians went to bomb churches in Jos? Christians went to bomb churches in Bochi? They went to bomb churches in Bayelsa, in many other places? To what kind of simplistic mind can we attribute the assumption that all these reflect only one and only one thing, Boko Haram from the north?
Now let me get back to, because sometimes the people who are making these accusations, they are also looking at history. And as a historian, you remember in the 80s there were the Maitasima movement, and it was during Shagare's time. So do you see the way that people seem to find that kind of connection? And is it really what is you explained that it's about failure of government? Was it the failure of government in the 80s that led to that Maitasima movement?
Thank you very much. Precisely. You see, now that you have talked, let us look at it from a historical angle. Are you getting my point?
Yes.
I mentioned to you that Boko Haram, in specific terms, what you call Boko Haram, you can trace largely to 1999. It came into existence after the initiation of the Fourth Republic. But the crisis between religious groups and the government has a far longer history. And the longer history you can trace back to the colonial times. During the colonial times, the colonialists had two essential policies. The first one were those people, groups, Islamic groups, that associated with them, supported them, and that collaborated with them. Now, these people, they patronized. Any other group that opposed them was handled with violence in the most aggressive form. And that tradition of aggression against Muslims who do not accept or who do not agree with the establishment, with the status quo, has continued up till now. If you take Nigeria that is supposed to be independent, democratic, people should be free to express their views. If, for example, they express, it is through the expression of their views in an open and free atmosphere without coercion that we could be able to assess them and see whether they are relevant or not. But unfortunately, we have taken over this colonial tradition of going after them with guns and bayonets every time they express dissension from the existing order. And unless we change that, unless we fully democratize our polity, unless we respect the right of people to express their own opinion, unless our government respects the constitution on the basis of which it comes to power, in whose names it operates, we will not know peace. The lack of most of the crises you have is because the constitution is not being respected, and is not being respected by who in the first instance? By the government. The government needs to be seen to respect the constitution in order for it to really establish it and make it the instruments for social governance and development. What you have asked is a good question, and this is the explanation for it. You cannot build democracy. Nigeria became independent in 1960. In order to build democracy, you must respect your own constitution. You must respect the rights of all citizens in this country to express their views in line with the constitution. You can punish them where it deviates from the constitution, but you cannot kill them, punish them, go after them, where they are supposed to be doing what the constitution says they should do.
Now, I like the way you're explaining that, but also we all know that government in Nigeria, traditionally, they've been using force to deal with oppositions in this way, like the OD. They went in there and wiped out the
you say traditionally. I agree with you, but it's not traditionally. Yeah. What you are saying now is important for us to understand the nature of the Fourth Republic in particular. Mm-hmm. When you take the First Republic, which won independence for Nigeria, which had people like Azikwe, people like Awolowo, people like the Sardauna of Sokoto, people like Okpara, who are nationalists, who won independence for the country, declared it a republic, promoted democracy, that was progress.
Yeah, but it's also...
Republic, I'm coming. The Second Republic was similar to that. It was also progress. But in the under the Fourth Republic, what you have is a neo-military regime. It's supposed to be a civilian regime, but it is a very, very powerful trend towards civilian dictatorship. And that is why it is noted for the violence at Odi. It is noted for the violence at Zaki Biam. It is also noted for lack of concern with the various conflicts that have been raging in the various areas in the middle belt on so-called indigenous and settler bases. It has, in all other parts of the country, there has never been a time in the history of Nigeria when so many little wars are going on. Apart from the Nigerian Civil War, this is the one time which the Nigerian security system has been stretched to its limit. What kind of civil democracy is this?
Now let's look at the options. The options are very simple. Either we negotiate with Boko Haram group, or crush them. Now, what do you recommend, and what will be the consequences if the government decides to go full out there to crush them?
My dear Okonko, please let me ask you a question. Where in the world do reasonable people say that they have only that going out to crash this is just an option? Yeah,
but that's what some people are saying in government. There are some people who are proposing that's the same.
A lot of people are saying that you need to negotiate. Everybody in Borno is saying you need to negotiate. All the people I know in Nigeria, experts, politicians, and so on, are saying you need to negotiate.
What's the difficulty in negotiating? Why is it hard? Why is it difficult?
I don't know. You should ask the government. The government is the one that should be actually at the forefront of this. But I see a lot of people, interest groups from different places, telling the government that the only way you can solve this problem is through negotiation. Now, I don't know what else it is supposed to do, but I know that recently they have issued a white paper on the Galtimari report, and a lot of people are looking forward to see if that will be a very good step towards finding a solution to this problem. This problem is not something anybody wants. People who are innocent are losing their lives. People who are businessmen are losing their incomes. Everybody is worried. It is in the interest of the innocent people of Nigeria to bring this to an end. And the best way to bring it to an end is to engage in dialogue with these people. Well, I wouldn't know. But unless they engage in dialogue with them, how would they know how to solve the problem?
Now, after the Arewa Consultative Forum Conference on Peace and Unity last December, you disagreed on one of their recommendations on ethnic nationality. What is your position on that, and in the larger context of what we're discussing?
Okay, I disagreed with them because, you see, if you look at Africa today, let us leave Nigeria for a little while. You look at Africa, what is the problem in Africa? There are two processes of political activities. One, those that we could say have been trying to build Africa into a united continent that could be able to take care of its own problems. People, nationalists and Pan-Africanists of old. And they did a lot. They have made a lot of progress, were able to establish OAU and so on. But unfortunately, in the last decade or so, maybe 20 years or so, since military takeovers and increasing foreign involvement in the affairs of African countries, there has been this other trend which has now developed, which is the trend towards disintegration, which model you can see clearly in Somalia, in Sudan, in Burundi, in Rwanda, go on and on, all over the place. So I ask you a question. How do you explain that while the rest of the world is trying to put itself together, to unite and to move on, whether in Europe or in the Americas, whether in Asia or even in Australasia, in Africa we have this new trend and it seems to be taking hold. What explains it? This is where leadership of intellectuals is required. And unfortunately, the people who seem to be making the largest noise in Nigeria in the name of intellectuals are people who push you along the path of ethnocentrism, of tribalism, of ethnic nationalism. And this ethnic nationalism is not an answer, it is a problem. It is the major problem. It leads to disintegration. It doesn't come to an end. If you finish with Nigeria, it will go on into every other kind of formation, political formation you have. People will continue to segment because they don't know how to unite, because they don't have the skills, they don't know the importance, they don't even appreciate the significance of unity as a factor in development.
Now, let me speak for those, because you made a good point. Let me speak for those who are proposing that. They are saying that if you look at Western European countries, that before they came back together to form European Union, they broke down into the smallest entity. Like you have the British, you have the Germans. You didn't have the Germans trying to occupy the Polish, and the way they had the German Empire before. So they went back to become their smallest entity before they now came together and agree on the kind of structure they are going to have as a national, as an entity. So the question is, don't you think that because we are looking at it like we have only two options, I mean that we have to follow one, it could be possible that the argument of the other side is that it's possible that if we break down to the small entity, then those entities will then come back together and come and negotiate on how they want to form a bigger country. Do you think that is not possible?
No. In fact, it is even not the beginning. Well, if you refer to the history of the European states, you are talking of a history of the building of nation states. The process of the building of nation states when the Holy Roman Empire collapsed. Are you getting my point? You are talking of building of nation states. You are not talking of the differentiation of people into ethnic states. There is no such a thing as an ethnic state. Now, this is the real problem. The real problem is that the people who are making these suggestions have no solution. If you want to divide the country on some very basic ideas, make a proposal. But you have no proposal. They have no proposal to make. They only persist on making things which amount to nothing more than blackmail. Even if it is an intellectual argument, please present it. Let everybody see it. Let us discuss it. Let us debate it. Let us see what you mean. And that will be a very, very important way to proceed.
No.
But when you now engage in blackmail, you accuse people of this or that. That is a completely different kettle of fish. What we are talking about now is that if you take ethnicity, are you getting my point?
Yes.
Ethnocentrism, racism of this nature, because that is what defines this particular approach. It can only lead to disintegration, and it cannot in any way lead to any formation. In fact, where in history have you ever seen political entities organized on the basis of ethnic groups? If you know your history, this has never happened. The only places where these attempts were made, I will mention them to you, and I will show you what consequences came thereafter. One, during the colonial times, as a result of racist policies and tribalist policies, the colonialists attempted to organize societies on racial and tribal lines. And we all know what happened. A lot of crisis, a lot of struggle and for independence. The second was in Southern Africa, where ethnic groups were made the building blocks of so-called apartheid system. We know how it has collapsed. The third is in the fascist system in Germany, where Hitler attempted to use racial groups, Aryan, Caucasoids, Jews, etc., as basis for differentiation and organizing society. It also collapsed. And now you have Zionism in Israel. Beyond this, nobody, nowhere, societies are multicultural in nature. When you have a proposition like ethnic nationalism, which discounts multiculturalism, which discounts individual citizenship right. Why does it discount individual citizenship right? Because it insists on group rights only. Group rights, how do you adjudge groups? Even God said he is not in a position to judge groups. He adjudges people on the basis of their individual capabilities, capacities, and activities. But you cannot put groups together and say you adjudge them. So how do you adjudge me on the basis of my language only? How do you adjudge me on the basis of where I come from only? This is against the constitution, every kind of democratic constitution. That is why this ethnocentric point of view is also fascistic, because it denies democracy, it denies multiculturalism, and it denies individual citizenship right in the constitution.
Now, if there's a point of agreement between you and the people on the other side, is that the structure of Nigeria, the way it is today, is not working. So I'm asking you, do you support the position of having a kind of a national conference where these things will be discussed, or are you against that?
You see, this is again, we always need national conference. There is national conference going on every time. Has there ever been a time in Nigeria you say one national conference is not going on or another? Yes. But when you come, when you come and you say you are calling a sovereign national conference, and which goes against the constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, because the Federal Republic of Nigeria is based on states. Not only is it based on states, not ethnic groups, but it is also a democratic entity now. It is not. We are not under a military regime. You have to take these factors into account. What do you do with the National Assembly? What do you do with the political parties? Are they no role? Who is going to pick you and make you a sovereign individual? On what basis? These are critical questions which those people cannot answer. Why? Because the basis upon which they are thinking is not democratic. It is racist. And it is not going to answer these questions for you. We should have conferences. We should discuss everything that affects us. In fact, even if it be for us to separate, so be it. But that is, we are not racist. We do not believe in ethnocentrism. We are multiculturalists in orientation. With or without the southern part of Nigeria, Africa must unite. It must proceed to develop its own resources. It must when do they talk of structure? Why are they not talking of the economic structure of Nigeria? Is the economic structure of Nigeria an independent one? Why is it that they are not talking of industrialization? Why is it that they are not talking of the fact that the economic structure of Nigeria is not diverse? And why is it not diverse? Because it has been maintained as a colonial time. What do they have to say about foreign dependency, about foreign meddlesomeness? They don't talk about all these variables because they cannot. Some of them are their paymasters.
Now, along that line, let me ask you this. I've asked these questions to several experts who come on our show to talk about Boko Haram and what's happening in northern Nigeria. And the question is very simple. Is being a historian, can you tell us, give me an instance of a country like Nigeria, as big as Nigeria, with this diverse population, ethnic groups and religious groups, that is at peace, especially with the introduction of Sharia on one part of the country? Where in the world do we have such a country that we could say this is the model, this is how they did it, and that we can follow? Because obviously things are not working out well in Nigeria. And
please, you are coming with the same old life. You say, why are you always saying things are not working in Nigeria and you don't know where they are working? If you cannot make things work, they will not work. If all you see is nothing but colored by prejudice, how on earth can you see anything better? Let me tell you, why is the United States working? Is it not as big, as diverse as Nigeria? Why is China working? Is it not as bigger and more diverse? Why is India working? And what are you now telling me that if you don't know, even before the so-called Sharia, this Sharia has been in the constitution of Nigeria right from the colonial days. It has been there. Some of you in the south do not know about it. But you should go and study. You cannot just judge something which you don't know. What I will advise, and I will ask you to advise your viewers and readers, especially those of them who come from the south, please make some efforts to understand the kind of issues and problems in the north. Do not prejudge them. Try to find out. Try to understand what is the nature of the thing. You come to a conclusion. But don't go on coming to the same old prejudicial, dogmatic, and stereotyped conclusions which the colonialists have left for you. You should be original. You should be fresh. And you should try to understand things for yourself.
Now, let's go to you talked about economic inequality. It's been in the news recently. There are several articles published where that we now see that to some extent the people that control the oil industry in Nigeria, they appear to be mainly people from the north, even though the oil is in the south. And there is the argument by northern governors that they should get more money from the oil revenue. So my question is, where do we see, how can the country survive? I mean, what is the basis?
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you. You see, these two questions again, they still emphasize this frame of mind, this prejudice. Let us start. When you are building any country in the world, do you say, okay, we will find this mineral there, we will find that? People who are part of that country, they bring in their resources, they become part of the country, and whatever you discover in the future, you use to build that country. But the most important thing is to build the country. The fact that when we became part of Nigeria, were we thinking of the oil in the south? Did we know there was oil? And now there is oil, and then even if they are mining the oil, for goodness sake, can't you see the way you adjust the situation? You say northerners have the oil well. Okay, a few northerners have oil wells in Nigeria, but don't foreigners have oil wells in the south?
No, what I was saying is that
listen to me. Excuse me. Why is it okay for these people, foreigners, to have oil wells, to control oil wells in southern Nigeria, and southerners to have oil wells in southern Nigeria, but it's not okay for northerners to have it? This is the prejudice I'm talking to you about.
Now, if it's true that 80% of the people, the oil companies, indigenous ones, are owned by northerners, if it's true, are you and we know wait, doctor.
You mean individuals?
Individuals, yeah, of course, individuals, and we know, doctor. Let me finish, and we know.
United States companies, do they belong to people?
Now let me finish.
When you say wait, when you say that Exxon, Mobil, and so on, does it belong to all the people in the United States? Do we blame all the people in the United States because Exxon and Mobil are owning something somewhere or doing something somewhere? So if somebody from northern Nigeria comes and he owns oil, you blame all the people in the north, you put all the people in the north under attack. This is the kind of group judgment, this group prejudice, which you have, which you need to overcome.
Now, what I was saying is that when we know that these oil blocks were given out by people who were running the country, and most of them, so for instance, if you have Babangida, the names of Babangida giving oil blocks, giving for 8 years, giving oil blocks.
Wait, what about Obasanjo?
Of course, but Obasanjo too.
Obasanjo is the most corrupt leader, not only in Nigeria but on earth. So if Babangida is corrupt, why are you also not talking about?
Of course, I'm getting to all of them.
So corrupt because he comes from the south.
But I want you to understand that
what kind of rubbish is this?
People in the oil development area, the Niger Delta, they feel that their homeland is polluted.
75%. Let me tell you something. 75% of the land area in Nigeria is in the north. Northerners have never said people from the south are benefiting from this or they are benefiting from that. They believe southerners are part of Nigeria and they are right to what is Nigerian. What you be say somebody because he comes from, he has no right to something because it comes from the south, even though he's a Nigerian, then you are in deep trouble. You are angling on the basis of reason, not reason.
Now everybody should have right if it's fairly done. If things are done in a fair way, you understand why people are angry. If I'm the president today and I can give oil blocks, to people.
That right in Nigeria. How can it be fair when you are not ready to acknowledge that Northerners have a right in Nigeria?
No, nobody. That's not the argument. For most people, they believe because things are not done in a fair way in Nigeria, they believe that the people who run the country decide on their friends, which they give out these oil blocks to. Yes. So how do you want people?
And blame the North for that?
No.
And blame the North for that?
Well, if you want to make the argument,
we turn and blame the South for all the corruption that Obasanjo has been doing.
No, you can't.
We blame the South?
You can. I mean,
because this group judgment, this kind of group judgment, this prejudice, you judge individuals, you judge people who are responsible for one thing or the other. You don't extend them. Even in the Bible, it tells you, even God will not judge you, will not judge the sons on the sins of their fathers. And now you sit down there and you are telling me all this jazz about the North because one or two Northerners has done this. You blame the North. Every day it is the Northern region. Every day it is the House of Fulani. Every day these people who don't know about you, they are trying to live a decent life. And out of your own ethnic chauvinism, you always blame them for everything. And this, like Obasanjo, who is there, who has sunk the nation into chaos, and many other people in the South, you are not blaming them because you are suffering from this kind of prejudice.
Okay, so who do we blame now?
You blame the people who actually are responsible. If Babangida is at fault, then blame Babangida. If Danjuma is at fault, blame Danjuma. And if you go to the court and you say it is the Northerners, will they listen to you? They'll take Danjuma to court, take Babangida to court, take whoever to court. But don't go on with this kind of jazz and nonsense that every time one person from the North does something, then all Northerners are culpable. That is not so. Nobody, not even God, judges people that way.
Okay, let me get you to tell me, in 2015, what are you seeing in terms of the political situation in the country? Do you think that we have any chance of having a decent government come 2015?
Well, I always believe that a government is what people make it. The present government, we don't have to wait to 2015, can be decent. If we are ready to ask it to go by the Constitution, not by our primordial needs or sentiments. people rushing to Jonathan and telling him that because they come from the South, they are for this. They have this one. No, go by the Constitution. Respect the Constitution. And please know one thing. Every kind of government in the world today is to be adjudged only on the basis of two things. One, whether it is just or unjust. You don't judge it on the basis of the ethnicity or the race or the religion or the person who is in control and then condemn it for that. No, has it been just or has it been unjust? And it can only be just if it respects the Constitution and it respects the rule of law. That is all you have to tell them to do. And that is what you and me should be getting together to do, to make our governments do, rather than blaming each other on the basis of such nonsensical things like tribe, like race, like religion, and so on and so forth. If you and me can get together and act in this way, then Africa will be better. And not to sink into this regression, this segmentation, this ever-divisive dimension of growth, which leads only to chaos. Look at all the women and children hanging all over in Africa, orphans.
Now, you know that in January there were protests across the country, and for some parts of the country, like the East, didn't join, and the South didn't join. So how do you overcome the same thing you are talking about?
Which protests are you talking about?
Against oil subsidy. So there were protests.
Every part of the country joined. Who told you that? Were you in Nigeria?
No, there were no protests in the East and South.
The Nigerian Labour Congress. The Nigerian Labour Congress, was it not a national body? So many civil society organizations which were national, did they not join? And even a few people in the South are paid by the presidency to do something. Does it mean that we should not expose what they are doing and concentrate on our country?
Okay.
This is a fact.
Let me. Can you give me an assessment? Your assessment of Jonathan, his performance so far. How has he been doing?
Well, I think to be honest and frank with you, I see somebody who is trying to do good, but who is hamstrung by two major problems. One, he is becoming extremely over-dependent on foreign advisors, rather than on the National Assembly and the Nigerian Constitution. That is the first one. The second is, I see somebody who is trying to do good for his country, but does not seem to have gotten out of the clutch of people who are interested in their own immediate thing. Like there is Obasanjo, the former president, the kind of influence he has on him. Like some of these cliques, so-called tribal cliques, and the kind of influence they are trying to exert on him. If he can overcome these two, if he can overcome these negative influences and concentrate on the Nigerian Constitution and go with the National Assembly and respect the wishes and the aspirations of the Nigerian people, then we are going to have a good president. If he cannot do that, he will go down the way of the rest.
Okay. Thank you so much for talking to Sahara Reporters.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate your time.
Give my regards to all your people and all the trouble we have given you.
All right. Thank you.
Don't mind. I talk harshly, so don't worry.
No, it's okay. That's part of the show. That was Dr. Sule Bello talking to us from Zaria. When we come back, we are going to show you some of our other shows and other guests. Like we talked about bringing you some Nigerian artists who are in New York for a show, Shango, and we are also going to talk to gay rights activists on the Ugandan gay bill making its way in their parliament. Until then, stay tuned.